We're not curing cancer. We're not saving lives. We're just trying to, take care of a customer. Super simple.
We have all this incredible technology and the industry kind of stays the same.
People want to do business with people that are easy to do business with.
Sure.
And they're willing to pay more for a better experience.
Are you creating roadblocks or are you creating a seamless process?
It all comes down to people. I feel it's my job, it's the company's job to help them reach where they want to be in their personal life.
People want to matter.
We have 2 ears and 1 mouth, and I think when we use those things, they just want the right car that fits their needs at a fair price with a good experience. And if you can check those 3 boxes, you're going to win.
Are you wasting your time and money on inefficiencies in the business? Are sales down and lead conversion rates are low? Are you having problems building or maintaining inventory levels? What does it really take to win in the automotive industry?
Get the cars that make sense for your store rather than just wishing at an auction, so it gives you that better control.
With over 25 years of experience, Darrell the Wolf Steed isn't just another industry voice. He's the guy who's out there solving real problems for dealers just like you.
They'll even say in the Pacific Northwest where you're at that it's a tougher market. It's tougher to find cars. The market's a little bit softer, and in the midst of all this, your turn doubled and your profit's up 75%.
Yes.
The truth hurts only when it should. Are you ready to hear the truths? Darrell is here to unpack the hard truths and the proven strategies that will take your dealership from struggling to soaring. And he is taking it all in the streets, with real talk, open dialogue, unfiltered conversations. This is the podcast series, Street Smarts, powered by Smartwolf Consulting.
Welcome back, everybody, to Street Smarts. I am Darrell Steed, and I am your host for this podcast. Today, we get a real special treat with our guest because this is somebody who is defining taking it to the streets. He has worked his way up from the start all the way up to being the sales and finance director of the Nilo Automotive Group. He over the years that I've known him, seen what he's doing, he has a real knack for coaching and building extremely effective teams, both in the experience and production side. And so we're going to get to talk to Dennis here and really kind of get his insights of what's going on, what's working, what's not working, what we need to change, and just kind of see it from a different aspect, somebody who's seeing it and dealing with it daily on the personnel side. So everybody buckle up, let's hit the road. And Dennis, thank you so much for coming on Street Smarts, and really appreciate it. And we'd love to hear about where are you winning right now in life?
In life? Wow, that's a big question. Right now, on the personal front, really excited. I think my family, I got 5 kids ranging from 11 all the way up to 24. 3 of the 5 are off the payroll and doing well. So I'm excited about that. And making some good memories, which, honestly, I think being able to make some great memories oftentimes is a byproduct of having success, in our jobs. It seems to take some dough to make that happen. So, and then I'm, really excited. We've got a lot of accomplishments here at the Nilo company. And, that's just people raising up through the industry, so, that's a big win. We've got a lot of guys and gals that are enhancing their career and, living great lives outside the walls here. So it's a lot of good stuff.
That's fantastic. As anyone is watching this, and you'll see, I always start the podcast of where they're winning in life, because at the end of the day, guys, the automotive industry is far from easy. There's a lot of lucrative money to be made and jobs when you work hard, but it is one of those things that it's about who we do it for, right? And why we do it. And so when you have those accomplishments in life, it makes the job worth it on the down days or the days where it's really taxing. Yeah. So Dennis, it's great to hear that obviously things are going well. Now, when it comes to the just industry life, like what challenges are you dealing with both in Nilo or the industry that you see that we haven't dealt with before, or that are things that we're having to tackle now that are kind of different than years past?
Yeah, I think from years past, when I look at it, I just think the being in California, as you know, Darrell, the regulatory landscape, it's a little bit more complicated than I think maybe some others. Well, I know it's a little more complicated out here than it is maybe in some other states. Obviously we had an election that just took place, so some changes, so that might change. I think it might be a little bit more friendly. And then just obviously, we went through COVID, which I think those were officially the good old days. We all sold not as many cars for a lot of fun and a lot of profit, but, we're back in the car business. And I think really the challenge is for all of us is really just leaning into our people and getting the most out of them, right? They got to go back to, just really sales 101, the stuff Henry Ford probably dealt with in his day. Here it is back in the center. And, as new cars are coming back. There's, they're out there, they're doing the incentive things. And then, pre-owned sourcing, pre-owned inventory is, continues to be, the challenge.
Yeah, it is a challenge. I mean, that's where I live, in that space of the sourcing and building those acquisition strategies. Interesting enough, talking about Henry Ford, I think that's a really relevant insight of, back when the Model A came out off the line, and that there was a sales tactic, which was really about people and people, right? It was the interactions and the connections. And, there's a couple of people that have put out data of, like, in the 70s, the average salesperson did 10 cars, and then the 80s, 10 cars, the 90s, 10 cars. It's always 10. And what I think is oddly interesting about that, and we're not talking about the one-offs that do better than that, is we have had technology span from, phones to fax machines to beepers to iPhones to BlackBerries to now we have AI. We have all this incredible technology, and the industry kind of stays the same.
Wow.
And why I find that interesting is, like you said, it's like the COVID was like the good old days, and now we have to get back to selling, is with our people. Like, how do you guys tackle it there with ensuring that, one, where you're training or that you're bringing that connection or that experience back with your people to where it's not order taking like we had in COVID, where it was kind of like, take it or leave it. I have the car. We don't really need to have much connection. So now we really need to have even more, because it's that experience that is now driving the, we'll say profitability, but the sustainable business model.
Yeah, well, I think that's a great point. I mean, I was reading, a study the other day, and go figure, it was a Cox Automotive study where, consumers, they indicate that they're willing to pay more for a better experience. And I think, there's been so much emphasis, especially through COVID. And I think a little bit before that is, really trying to speed up transaction times, facilitating people's ability to transact 100% online, which is something that we're doing here at the Nilo company. But, even when you look at the 100% online that we've experienced here, it all comes down to people, right? And getting them ready to interact with the customer, putting our people in a position where they can meet the customer where they want to be. But to answer your question specifically at the Nilo company, when we have a new teammate join the company, we start out on Monday. Every new hire, doesn't matter if they're in fixed or variable, they come in here to the management company, and, our HR team does a great job, getting them onboarded, doing, all the training that we've got to do from, harassment and, red flags, OFAC, all the different stuff, and then giving them an overview of what the culture is like. So when they leave the management company, all that check the box stuff is done, so they can hurry up and truly integrate with their team. And then when it comes to the sales and finance side, I have someone that works with me. Her name is Kristen Long. She's amazing. She goes within the next day or two, if it's someone in sales and finance, and just sits down with them one-on-one and goes through all the little widgets or tools that we use which really all they are is a way to facilitate communication with the customer and make sure they can navigate those things. So that way, they're able to get in the fray and start making a good living quickly. But a lot of one-on-one time out of the gate. And, I think that's important. And then obviously when it comes to widgets, finding stuff that maybe it's not the best tool, but it's easy and we can keep them isolated into one or two platforms to do their job.
No, I think that's, I'm glad that you said it just like that when it comes to tools. I think everybody, you see software tools everywhere, or you see widgets and apps, and they're like, oh, we have the best thing. We do this better or this better. And it's like, and they probably do. Like, in essence, they probably do 2 or 3 things, but you're like, yeah. However, if I have to add logins, or it doesn't communicate with this other thing, or this, are you creating roadblocks, or are you creating a seamless process? Right. And then the more roadblocks, and you could take a 20-year veteran or a 2-day green pea, and if you create roadblocks, that is going to make it makes it harder for them to feel comfortable in that realm. Right. And so I think that's great that you guys, and then you take the time. I know I talk to, I don't know, probably 30 to 40 dealers a week, in some way or the other, with some of the things that I'm doing. And oddly enough, training, foundation, support is, regrettably something that is almost like a cuss word. It's like we don't do it. We don't prioritize it. And we just go like this. And it's probably how you came in the business. I know how I came in, as it's baptism by fire. Like, hey man, go get it. Good luck and best of luck. And that worked for some people. Some people like that. But again, it doesn't work for everybody. And so the fact that you guys have taken that care, I think that says a lot to why you guys don't have the turnover that other people do, and that you guys do promote within. I know quite a few people in your guys' organization that started on the bottom and now they're moving their way up, which is a testament to making sure you're putting people in the right place.
Well, whenever you chat with, people in our industry, I know you talk with a lot of people, I have my fair share of conversations, and this has, been going on forever. Turnover in the retail automotive industry, by and large, it's a real thing. It's very expensive. It's time consuming. It hinders your customer experience, and we're all trying to deliver a great experience to our customers, because that's what's coming back. And when you hear people say, "Oh man, training is such a task or such a chore," and I'm talking to a dealer down in Southern California, and finding somebody that is like, they like to train, they like to invest into other people. I think that's a rare commodity. I mean, you have people that like, and then the next question is, hey, are they effective at doing it? But, if we really want to, really deliver a great customer experience, I believe it really starts with delivering a great employee experience. And I think that's why, on Monday, we have our class, we get them integrated into our culture, we get all the check the box stuff done, right? And then we have, people like Kristen who go out and spend one-on-one time, and we have our routine weekly touch points, and, really drive a culture. Hey, Darrell, if you don't know something, like, that's cool, right? I am totally great with you not knowing something, right? Yep. I'm picking on you because it's you and I, right? Yeah. But what I really like to see is when somebody really believes that, okay, Dennis thinks, or Kristen thinks, or any member of the team thinks that, like, hey, it's cool if I don't know something, they can call and reach out for help, right? Sure. We want them to all have this unlimited lifeline so they can hurry up and grow in their specific position, because once they grow there, to your point, people advancing in the company, that's something we really strive for. I can go around the Nilo company. I got a really good friend of mine I've known since, 2009. And, he came on board as a finance manager, did really great, led the company, said, hey man, I want to manage people because I know that's what I need to do to eventually become a GM. He made a great impact as a sales manager. And something changed in somebody's life, and now he's a general manager of our Porsche store. So, and that all starts with learning to ask for help and, just getting real good at your craft. And I think if we promote a culture of that, that's how people grow. And, that's what we want for everybody. And even if it means growth outside the Nilo company, because they have a dream they're chasing, I feel it's my job, it's the company's job to help them reach where they want to be in their personal life.
No, I agree. I think when you train people, I think it's, you hear it all the time. And like, there's 2 points you made. That last one we'll hit first is, so someone, you've trained them, you've got them dialed in, and now they go somewhere else. And I've never really understood the, like, why are we upset about that? Like, if you don't have an opportunity, right? Like, let's get real, to get a GM spot, let's say, those don't just come open all the time. And if they do, think about it, whether or not you want that, because if it's open all the time, you might be next. Right. So, but if there's an opportunity and you've trained them, why are we upset about that? That's the best accolade of saying you've put them in that position to pursue their goal. And they're going to remember that. And then they're going to emulate. Typically, they will emulate what you did for them because that's what made them successful. So I've always said, like, hey, guys, I'm putting you in the position to when any position comes open, that you're ready to interview or you're ready to have that conversation. Whether you get it or not, I can't guarantee that. But we should put them in a position to have that opportunity. And then the other thing that you had spoke about is, embodying those people and to have that lifeline. What I like that you said, right, is that they can reach out to anyone. I had a guest on the podcast, Missy Balance, probably the single best salesperson I'd ever hired. And now she's risen up to being a GSM of a large store. And it was funny when I'd hired her, no experience, just very nice, very friendly. And she said, hey, this guy wants this car and there's a car blocking it. And I was like, so, and it was one of those, is like, when you have someone at the store, everyone works for you. If you don't know how to do something, because again, they may not want to come to me. I might be the big scary wolf. They may not want to go to you because they're like, oh, it's Dennis. I don't want to ask him. But when you allow people to say, everybody is there to be a lifeline for you, they're going to identify or they're going to connect with somebody. And now they don't feel like they're a pain or a nuisance or a problem because you've told them everybody is here to progress a deal, a service customer, whatever it may be. Like, if you don't know, we have X amount of people, 100 people, 200, like, use them. And if you don't, then there's no one to blame but yourself because you chose not to ask for that help, which I think is empowering, especially to the younger generation. We see Gen Z, we'll say a little millennial, but Gen Z of confrontation is not a big hot button for them. They don't really like getting in arguments. They're more detractive of that. And so giving them the opportunity to say, hey, get with somebody you may not like how somebody deals, get with somebody that you like. I think that empowers people a lot more than we typically have seen in the previous years in the auto industry, which I think that's a testament. Like I said, when we introduced you, I've heard nothing but great things and then seen things of how you coach people. And, and in the auto industry, guys, for those of you guys who don't know, it is very hard, near impossible to ask about someone and someone not say something negative about somebody. It's just, I hate to say it, but it is kind of what the business is. We're like the good looking cheerleaders that still make fun of the fat person, right? Is we want to tear someone down typically as an industry. And with Dennis, you don't hear that. You hear that he's very upbeat. He's always looking for the solution. If he's got a reprimand or he's got to talk to you, it's never of like, you did something wrong. It's like, how do we get better? Those are traits of a real leader. So I think you should obviously be really endeared by that, because when I talk to people, it's like, you want to know, like, the people you talk to, you deal with, like, who are the people out there making a difference?
Yeah. Well, I should about it from a customer standpoint, right? Is, people want to do business with people that are easy to do business with. Sure. And I think, what that all comes down to is just easy to communicate with, and, you made a comment a minute ago, Darrell, about, like arguments or confrontation happening at the workplace. And I just sit here, here we are, we're at a 10 rooftop group, and our sole purpose is to take care of the customer, right? Because if we take care of them, they're just going to keep coming back. And it's just, I sit here and go, when I traveled around prior to joining the company and went to all these different dealerships, I just, I sit back and I go, like, how can we have this much confrontation in something that is truly so simple? All we're trying to do is help somebody get something to where they can get A to B and feel good about while they're doing it. And, sure. I think as soon as dealerships internally like arrive on this, like, we're trying to do one thing, take care of the customer. And to do that, we listen to them and we treat them fairly. We're transparent, and they leave here in a car. And if we do a good job, they're going to come back in service and do all the things they need to do. And to see that level of conflict over something so simple is just, I think, people trying to over-engineer what they do. We're not curing cancer. We're not saving lives. We're just trying to, take care of a customer. Super simple.
No, it's funny, the other thing you talked about. Now, mind you guys, as I say this, Dennis does not know that I have created a different product. Okay, Dennis and I met when I was doing instant cash offer, and I was a trainer, and then he knows that I do acquisition. But Street Smarts in my background is now a web academy and a genius group. And he had said something which I find oddly interesting because we did not talk before this,
Oh.
is that he said that it's about the customer experience is directly influenced by the staff experience.
Yeah.
Now, oddly enough, that is two of the biggest courses in the Street Smarts Web Academy.
Mm-hmm.
And I talk, and there's a lot of education behind it, the psychology, the basics, the foundation, and a lot of interaction with that because, as Dennis said, the Web Academy that was built was designed to be the foundational basics because I think we overcomplicate things.
Yeah.
And there's not a lot of education in the automotive industry or training. But if we take care of our people, it is more likely than not that they're going to take care of our customers. However, if our people don't like their jobs, I can only but guarantee they probably are not delivering a very good customer experience. Why? Because inevitably people are going to act as they are treated. I mean, it's simplistically of the golden rule, treat as you would treat people, but it even goes more than that, is if they don't feel valued, empowered, whatever word that we use at that given time, they typically are not going to then make the customer feel that way.
Well, I think right.
I thought it was really interesting that you said that.
Well, that cliche, right? We've all heard it. Misery loves company. So if we're making our people miserable, they're going to make coworkers miserable and then also customers. So we all feel like shit and just go through it. So it's just, you got to keep these people, happy, and happiness, right? Happiness, I believe, comes from growth, right? That is how we fill our cup or find fulfillment, is giving people an opportunity to grow and to provide a good environment to grow. People have to be able to ask questions and, learn from them instead of the old, way of, do this because I say so, because, my business card says I'm a manager. That's why we're doing it. No, you need to give them the how, the why, and help them connect the dots so they can grow within the organization. Because if they're growing, again, it's all circular, right? They're going to provide that great experience to the consumer.
No, I agree with you. And interesting enough, when you talk about growth, right, manager, I personally don't like that term manager, not because it's bad. Is manager is almost like an incitement of power. Like, I'm the manager, right? When you say like coach or you say like leader or something like that. Now, mind you, I don't think everyone can be a coach or a leader, and there are some people that manage. However, when you have to coach, it's like now you are held to a higher standard. Like if I'm a 5. Yeah. And I expect my people to be an 8. I got to get myself to an 8 or a 9 to get them there. So it's that law of the lid. Yeah. And it's when you have managers, they're going through the motions. And so there's a place for managers and there's a place for coaches. But are you growing your people? And what I liked you also saying about growth, notice that Dennis did not say that people being there and enjoying their job is because they make more money. Because much like customers, which you don't have to believe this, I will provide any documentation to back up what I'm about to say, because there's a study on this, and probably by every third-party vendor, is that customers will pay more for experience. We know that to be true. We know price doesn't sell cars because people drive for them. But it goes the same way with your employees. I actually have a group that I'm consulting with. The person was like, hey, I'm looking for, yeah, it's just not working. And I said, well, is it the money? And they said, no. So, of course, immediately you have to then investigate because, what is it? And it came down to, the schedule, and they had a couple things, and they didn't get it off. And so it was schedule, flexibility, money. Do they feel heard? Someone gives you an idea. It doesn't mean you're going to use it. But do they feel like you're hearing them? Because now they feel like they're part of the solution. People want to matter. They don't want to be the cog in the wheel. They want to feel like they're making a difference. And so I love the fact you said grow, because everyone says, well, I'll just pay more money. I got offered an exorbitant amount of money for a consulting contract, life-changing money. And after 2 meetings with this particular group, it was the easiest no I ever said, because I also knew that I would probably be fighting to find that money every single month. So I think it's one of those things where you understand that people driver, right? And you're keeping it simple in the sense of, guys, we're not doing anything that is really intense, other than just making sure that people feel like they're being taken care of on all aspects, right? Full circle growth, right? All the way around. Now, switching gears a little bit, because obviously you guys have 10 rooftops and you guys have more luxury brands, right? You're not in the import, domestic, typical brands. And so when that with that being said, used cars is a little different dynamic for you guys because yes, you guys carry everything, but your guys' used cars, your certified cars and everything else, a little bit different models with Porsche, Jaguar, Land Rover, Infiniti. Gosh, you have all the Highline ones. You do have Acura. I know you have Acura. But when it comes to used cars, what are you guys seeing in the market? Is it a little bit different than the typical domestics and import brands? Is it a little bit different? And then what are you guys seeing both in used, acquisition, like the retail side of it, just in the market right now?
Yeah, well, I would say, there was a time, prior to me being here, we really got into, we were going to sell a bunch of cars, and, they sold a bunch of cars, and, we didn't quite have the, the margin, and, so I would say after that, the group reined back a little bit on, in terms of their strategy and approach to pre-owned, but, over the last, 2 to 3 years, we've really put a lot more focus onto used. And I know, on the outside looking in, I hear a lot of people, say, oh, well, it's luxury. Oh, it's Porsche, it's Land Rover, it's Volvo, it's Audi, BMW, all the stuff. Right. But, I just really don't see it's any different than, a domestic, it's just a car. It's got 4 wheels. It's got a different price point. People that want those things, I think maybe the only difference is somebody that comes in and buys a pre-owned BMW, their expectation of customer service seems to be a little bit higher than what I experienced when I was working on a domestic. But, that would really be the only difference. But, we have really been, growing our used car operation. We've had tremendous year over year growth in our used car volume. I really believe there's still meat on the bone. At one point we did have a centralized buy center that what worked out for us. We're a little bit more decentralized now, and that every store has an individual or two that's sole dedication is on, acquiring used inventory to stock the lot. We even are, we're going after off make just because we're a Porsche store. I want to sell somebody a Ford F-150 out of the Porsche store because I'm just going to go out on a limb. That person wouldn't mind having a Porsche in their garage one day. So if they come in here and they get the Nilo experience and we treat them great, and they just, they're like, man, these guys are rock stars. Next time I'm in the market for a whatever, maybe they don't go back to the Porsche store, but they're going to run over and buy an Audi, right? Because their career is advanced in such a way that, I can afford to have one of those now. They come see me. So I don't look at it really any different. I want to have the merchandise. I can market to the customers that are looking for that specifically. And as long as I'm priced right, I put a quality vehicle on the road and I treat them good, like I'm not afraid of it. Our store's not afraid of it. So we're actively trying to stock the appropriate inventory and being much more aggressive than we had in years past.
It's interesting. I'm glad that you, when you said that, is like, I talk to people about acquisition, and I'm glad that you told, you mentioned how you guys used to have centralized, now you've decentralized that. And, off podcast, I'd love to talk to you more about that. But is when you're looking at acquisition, is one, making that a focus. Now, whether or not it's a primary focus or just a focus, that's always the conversation. But how you're saying, like, if we have these cars off make, right? And the reason I ask, because you have high line, is there's some people saying we stick to our high line, or we stick to our model lines, and then we'll have some trade-ins. But your approach is, again, where the market has went, right? And where it is just because it's a Ford truck or a Dodge Charger or a Nissan Altima, and it's a Porsche store. If you have the car and you have it priced right, in the sense of that you're not trying to price it 150% of market, is oddly enough, they'll go where the car is. It doesn't matter what your nameplate is for your new car franchise. More so, which I think some people miss, the Porsche, the Audis, the Mercedes, those lines, is that experience typically, because you are catering to a very specific model set most of the time in your new cars, is they come in and then they get this different experience. They get that Porsche type experience or that Nilo type experience. So they go, whoa. Yeah. So it's like, it's a little bit nicer. It's a little bit, more friendly. And then, so again, whether it's the future or the word of mouth of them saying, man, if you're looking for a used car, check out Nilo first, because man, the way they took care of me. Yeah. So I don't think people quite, like, I don't want to say they don't understand. Everyone understands the thought process to it. I think there's a big disconnect in the people that are executing, understanding the used car is a one of one.
Yeah.
It's really about that experience. So if you have the car and you still have to price it within market conditions. I mean, you can be on the old hope plan and put it $5,000 over retail and hope somebody comes in. But we've seen what that looks like. It, creates aging. But when you have that customer experience, it then changes their perception of what they want to do. Or like you said, now they've went there. And as their career progresses, they remember that experience and they're like, that's where I'm going, right? So the fact that you guys are building and that you look at it for future, it's not about today's business, it's about tomorrow's business, I think is, again, another real accolade of understanding the market as a whole, right? It's not about the first transaction, it's about the transactions after, whether it be service, additional vehicles, things of that nature.
Well, it's funny, right? We just built we just were awarded a couple of years ago a second Porsche point. So we have a brand new Porsche facility here in Sacramento. It opened in May. And, just a couple months ago, they had a beautiful Honda Odyssey. Like, I'm not a minivan guy, but those are popular. I've had one. I did my minivan tour out of necessity. Beautiful Honda Odyssey. Great car. Customer found it. When we delivered it, we pulled it into the same bay that we deliver a brand new $500,000 Porsche, and even poured them a little glass of champagne to celebrate they got their brand new, or they're new to them, I should say, Honda Odyssey from Porsche Sacramento, right? And just to turn on that experience, and we want our people thinking about that. I would say, maybe the biggest challenge we've had is getting out of the the mindset as Darrell, and the audience probably would expect, right? Is that when you sell a car at a higher price point, 100,000, 150,000, so on and so forth, and that's not every car, right? You would expect to make a little bit more margin, right? And I think when you're working at a Porsche store, what we've really had to work on with that team, and we've really finally got this thing dialed in, I get more excited. Am I excited when we sell a brand new GT3 RS? Yes, it looks super sexy on the financial statement. Great. But I would be more excited about just seeing, a short nothing deal on a pre-owned Honda Civic, because what that tells me is my sales team are engaged in selling. They're engaged in filling a customer need. They're engaged in giving a good customer experience. And, that's the way we keep our salespeople sharp is, through transacting. The more they transact, the sharper they're going to be, the sharper they become. And, that's, and it's good for the shop, right? Our technicians have cars to work on. I mean, it's just, there's a whole bunch of, positive byproducts of just continuing to engage in different markets. And, for those people that maybe they're working in Highline and they're like, oh, I'm going to stick to my brand, right? If you went to your finance manager who was having a bad month and their PVR wasn't where, and they tell you, oh, well, you don't understand, Darrell, Honda customers are different, or Toyota customers are different. We wouldn't accept that. So why would we sit there and say, well, the customers that buy pre-owned cars from a Porsche dealership or an Audi are different? No, they're not. They just want the right car that fits their needs at a fair price with a good experience. And if you can check those three boxes, you're going to win.
No, it's funny you say that. So years ago, when I had darker hair, less wrinkles, okay, lighter, faster, quicker. When I took over the director job at Mercedes-Benz of Fresno for their used car director, or Bischoff stores, so the San Jose store as well, it was funny. I get there, there's 30 cars on the ground. They're all certified Mercedes. That's the only cars they kept, right? It's cars they could certify, which I was like, okay, I get there and I'm like, I said, hey, do we sell other cars? Like, I don't really know Mercedes. I mean, I knew them, but not like, this isn't my bag. Like, I'd done old domestics and imports and everything. And he says, no, we need to grow this. And so I was like, we buy everything. We buy everything. We trade everything. I like everything. And we sell everything. Wow. Well, the internal economy, as you referenced, like for the shop, the parts, the service, magically they're printing profits because this is cars they would have just wholesale.
Yeah.
Right. And then two, we ended up driving in customers because in Fresno, a lot of almond farmers, they want cars for their kids and everything. And they're not buying them an S-Class. Like they want to buy them like a Toyota Camry or a Corolla. And so we started selling. Well, then all of a sudden you start building out this business. And I think people forget, like you said, when they're transacting is, at the Porsche store. Yeah. I mean, who doesn't want a GT3? I mean, that is one of my dream cars. In all fairness, I am not paying a house note for a car at this point in my life, but some people have that but when that Odyssey comes in and they get that experience, it's the brand, you're selling the brand, right? And CarMax does a really good job of that. They don't sell individual cars. They sell the brand and the experience, because now if you have a good experience, whether it be at the Porsche store or the Jaguar store or the BMW store, you're selling Nilo, like the experience. And now that you've opened up 10 different opportunities for future business and word of mouth, because they're at least going to look at you. They're at least going to give you, now you're in the conversation. Now, whether or not you stay there, that gets into your salesmanship and what you have. But I think people miss, like, hey guys, we're just selling cars. But at the end of the day, we're not even really selling cars. We're creating an experience of, I had a customer on the podcast. You'll see it before this one goes out. She was great. She says most of the time she'd bought a new car before after she sold her car to the buying center. But she said most of the time when she'd go in, she had a budget. And so she said, I had a budget. So maybe I wanted a BMW 3 Series, but I can only pay $450 a month. So she's like, inevitably, I would get whatever car I could afford because it came down to a budget. And so she said, what was interesting is she's like, getting a new car, I'm now in a position to where I could get a new car and I could lease. But she's like, sometimes I'd go in and then I left in a Nissan Altima, but I went in there wanting whatever. And I don't think and it was great to have a customer on this, and I have 3 other people set up to do that, as well as listening to the customer of like, this is how they see it.
Yeah.
Hearing their roadmap and how they got through it, because most people and most customers I've talked to now, they're like, I didn't come in here thinking I was going to get a Chevy Malibu.
Yeah.
But when you provided me the experience and then say, I don't think anyone says like, you know what I'm dying for is a Chevy Malibu, but they need a car from point A to point B. And then when you provided that experience, they trust it. They don't feel like they're being, we'll say, car guide from the 1980s. Like they don't feel like it's the movie Suckers.
Yeah.
Then all of a sudden they say, it's not the car that I necessarily wanted, but it does what I need it to do. It's affordable. And these people really, like, I feel like they took care of me and that I'm in a good position, which, as I say those 3 things, none of that has to do with selling cars. That has everything to do with just taking care of people and creating an experience. And so I find it really odd that we don't lean into that, right? And more importantly, and I'll segue into this to ask you is, like, where do people start? Like, where would people find out, or where would they start, whether it be training, things of that nature? Where would they start to, like, how do I go about building that experience? Because I don't see a lot of education in the construct of the automotive space of even how to start or do that.
Yeah. Well, that's interesting. I recently, it was in July, I was in Chicago at a JLR meeting, and the whole meeting was about providing customer experience, right? The table stakes, like a lot of people I think in our industry think, okay, you gave me X amount of dollars and you got the car that you wanted and it works, right? Like some people in our industry will chalk that up. Well, that's a good experience. But, through all the studies and stuff that they talked about at this meeting, like that is just the price of entry, right? Yeah. And, when I was listening to this lady who does consulting for, multi-million-dollar, very boutique travel, I don't know, she did travel, hotels and things like that. All I kept hearing, as long as she went on these stories and stuff, and you're sitting there going, well, how do I replicate that in my store? And there's ways to do it. But like the common denominator was listening.
Sure.
Just listening to your customer. We have 2 ears and 1 mouth. And I think when we use those things accordingly, right, we can then begin to meet and exceed these customers' expectations of what they want, right? I can't count the number of times where I've been running around a showroom floor or looking at a lead in our CRM or whatever, and the customer is asking a very specific question and we just sidestep it. Or you get an angry customer and we're like, we don't even address the thing they're angry about. We try to redirect. And I think, if I had to sum up what it takes to provide a great experience is like just be a good listener, right? We've all heard about mirroring. If Darrell asks me a question, I should rephrase his question to make sure I understand, right? What he's doing, and really tackle that particular request, but really listening, following up on your commitments, right? If you tell somebody you're going to do something, you've got to do it, because what this lady said at JLR is, even today, when you get your survey, like literally customers will not hose you on a survey because they know that the individual, it could impact their pay, and they won't ever tell you anything about their experience. You just flat out are not going to see them again, because you did not listen to their requests. You didn't answer their questions, but they don't want you to suffer financially, but you're going to suffer more financially in the long term because they don't come back. So I would say communicate and just live up to your commitments.
So when we're talking about that, right, because some of the training that I do, well, when I say some, it is all built around questioning, right, I always thought in the automotive industry that the model, I don't want to say it was broken. It just seemed very angled. Like it was like you had an intent, like you're trying to drive your intent rather than find out what's like, how do we make this work?
Yeah.
And so all the training that I've developed and that I've gotten really good at and was you sit with, by, next to, across from, doesn't much matter in the scheme of things. But then it's like you ask questions. Like I'm never telling anyone anything. So I'd say, hey, Dennis, like what brought you in? And then it's like, what made you want this vehicle?
Yeah.
What are we going to be using it for? And after every question, you want to give that 3 to 5 minutes of letting them feed back to you. And you should, and obviously we'll just date ourselves right now. Like you should have like, some kind of paper, pad of paper, like something that you can take notes, because yeah, exactly. No one's going to, I'm not saying, I have a photographic memory. So yes, you can hear it, do all this stuff. But when you write the notes, you're also showing that you're attentive to what they're saying, because I'm just writing down, and I don't need a bibliography of notes. Is you're listening for key things, so that, like you said, reframing, mirroring. Okay, so to make sure I understand this, because I want to make sure you have the best experience or find the best car, you're looking for blink, blink, and blink, whatever it may be. And I found when you have those questions, it tends to be a better experience just because of that conversation. However, in the catch-22 of that, what I found is that we don't train our people to have questions because we don't know where that conversation is going to go, and we don't know how to navigate it once we don't get an answer we don't know. Yeah. And so what I would love to hear is like, so we'll just use a sales environment, because I would imagine this will be a very interesting conversation as we kind of wrap into this. Is so when we come to acquisition, that's where I spend a lot of my time. So we'll use like Kelly Blue Book Instant Cash Offer or AccuTrade or any of these third-party lead providers, or if you have like trade pending on your website or any of those.
Yeah.
And I've always seen them go into a CRM. So fundamentally, right from the jump, I disagree with that, because when you put them in a sales CRM, or you put them in there and you don't work them differently, is you now have the intent of selling them a car. And I believe that's like when someone says, here, I want to know what my car's worth, that's the question.
Yeah.
So I need to work this until this is complete before we ever introduce wanting to sell them anything,
Correct.
Whether that be an appointment or whatever it may be. And I see a lot of stores going, immediately it's their templates or their phone calls and be like, oh, what are you looking to replace it? Like we immediately go into our agenda rather than their concern.
Yeah.
So like, and I'm not saying I'm right. It's worked every time that I've put it in that way, is when your guys' group, what do you guys see? What do you do? And then how do you kind of address that to ensure you fulfill your agenda, but you do it by asking the questions or answering the question before you get to your agenda?
Yeah, something that, we talk about, and I think this is true, probably regardless of industry, right? I think number one, we've got to remember here at the Nilo company or wherever you're at, that you are not the customer. Right. And, there's this term customer service, and customer service means like kind of answering their questions and giving them the information or goods and services they're after. And something that I talk about with, our sales professionals, or even when we're having, conversation with another person trying to get something done or figure out a process, there's this give to get, right? The customer called, inquiry, you got to give them what they're asking for in order to earn the right to ask for something in exchange, right? It's reciprocity. So, first and foremost, if a customer's calling in and says, hey, I want a value on my whatever 1997 Daewoo Laganza, the first thing I need to do is I need to get them a value on that car, right? Because as soon as I start sidestepping what they're asking for, that's when the spidey senses go. Like literally, you just blatantly ignored me. You totally, which is, in my opinion, if you don't answer a very direct question, I think that's a blatant sign of disrespect, and everybody likes to be respected. You got to give them the information. And I think in those cases, they do need to be worked differently. It's not a car deal, right? And that's why, having individuals or a very small group of individuals that's all they deal with is those types of opportunities. Because it is, it's the same, but it's different. And they need to be very focused on the acquisition in handling those in the way that it differs from a sale. Like we know this, if I get a sales lead, that customer is going to buy. 80% of my sales happen within 3 days of receiving a lead. Sure. But on an acquisition thing, I think that time frame is considerably longer. You might not acquire that car because they're going to get a number and they're going to be like, oh, I'm going to try and screw around with this all on my own on Craigslist, and it's going to sit there in a month, and they're going to deal with all the scammers and all the stuff, and they're like, all right, now I got to get in there. So I think the follow-up is it's a lot longer cadence to keep engaged, but you got to answer the question.
No, I 100% agree, and I'm glad that you said you obviously mentioned it like that. Is that it is the same in the sense of we're dealing with customers, but we are customer service, right? So taking it back to that very simple metric of, guys, it's about that staff experience into customer service. Like that's where we live. We are in customer service. Our staff are our customers to the company, and then customers are then the customers to us. Is if we have that experience and we build it in, but it's ask them what they're looking for, ask them what they want, ask them what they're trying to do. And when I say that, I'm not just talking about customers. No. You'd be surprised if you ask that to your staff sincerely, like don't say it condescendingly, but if you'd be surprised at one, how they open up. Two, they'll actually tell you. Yeah. Some of this younger generation would be the first ones to unload all their opinions and all the things that they think, which is good because I rather them tell me what's going on than spreading any type of negativity or, as the young kids say, like trolling across the dealerships and then spreading that type of stuff. So, and as wrapping this, kind of bringing this all to a head is understanding, like, guys, the Nilo company does a great job. I've been in quite a few of their stores. When he says their new Porsche store, it is a thing of beauty. I mean, it is one of the nicest things I've seen in a while. It glows at night with the red off the highway. Yeah. But it's just a testament to no matter which store you go into, it's very similar processes. It's very similar. And when I say they're the same process, but you get the similar thing, it might be a little bit different brands, things they have to do, but you walk in and it's very greeting. It's very open. There's not this, let me go find out if Oz is behind the curtain, right? So it's, that's a testament to what you're doing there. But second is like what he talked about. The industry has changed. We've had some things, but it really hasn't. We've always been in the same business, which is customer service. And the moment we start to realize that we have to put our people first, our customers second, and our profits third. And I heard this from one dealer, which it kind of states into this conversation, is when your people are first and your customers second and profits are third, your profits are never going to be a problem. Wow. It's when you look at your profits first or you manage to a statement and then you're trying to figure out how to make that work. It's then you put the other things back seat. And in turn, what does that end up doing? You either sacrifice service, you sacrifice who you get, you hire fast and fire slow, and then you get the wrong people in there. So there's a lot of moving pieces to that, but it really comes down to the very simple fact of we're in customer service, right? To make sure that we do that the right way. I know that, Dennis, you've got to get going. I want to thank you so much for obviously coming on here talking about this. And guys, as we've heard, Dennis did a couple different mic drops. If you didn't hear him, go ahead and hit replay. But we definitely took it to the streets and showed, like, guys, we're not curing cancer. We're not building a rocket to space, right? We're in customer service, and it starts with our people, second with our customers, and then that takes care of the store. I hope you guys all enjoyed another episode of Street Smarts, and thank you guys so much. We'll see you on the next episode.